All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. And we are continuing. It is the Road to Dakar Countdown to Dakar Rally 2024. And we've got another special guest today in the bivouac. You guys read the title. We're going to be talking to Tyler Theobald. Talking some rally, talking some racing, talking some riding. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where the conversation goes, but we are getting closer. By now, you would have heard the episode with Mason Klein and Lisa and Carter. Talking a little bit about the Dakar and the undertakings that are not. If you are not already following Mason, you need to be. Check the link in the description. That'll get you over to the Instagram and then also for the YouTube side of things. Really awesome to see. Getting a lot of insight into what the Dakar Rally takes and what is happening there and what it's going to take to get there. And that's just a little bit of a taste. Because if you guys heard the episode with Willem Avenant and his announcement, 2025 Dakar Rally, we're going along for the ride. We're going to get a more intimate look into what it takes to get ready for the 2024 Dakar with Mason Klein and then the year-long journey with Willem Avenant. So absolutely looking forward to that. You guys better be subscribed and sharing the podcast. It is greatly appreciated. Hey, we're worldwide. This is awesome. Getting to talk and meet a lot of new people. Sorry, the coffee's running down a little bit. But yeah, I'm absolutely excited. Here we go. It is going to be 2024. Another awesome year in North American Rally and Rally Worldwide. I think we need to start checking in with some of our listeners from across the pond. Talk about rally culture over there. See how we could get some of that rally culture over here stateside. So if you guys are tuned in, reach out to us. Would love to have you on the show. All right. Letting the music wind down here. We are almost ready to go. So let's get this going. Start sending the details. And making sure, so that's one of the things that we've been doing, and we haven't lost it now. Going on, starting into year number 4 of the Chasing Waypoints podcast being on the air and available on all your favorite podcast apps. Really worked on not changing the recipe, not giving guys a heads up of what is going on, other than like, hey, your phone's going to be ringing in a minute. Make sure you pick up. But that's how we have fun. And that's how we make it happen. So let's turn the party down a little bit here. And let's get Tyler on the phone. We got to scroll through, do all of the fancy stuff here. So how's everybody been doing? Everything good? Let's get the phone ringing here. And why is this? This is why we can't trust technology. This is why we can't have nice things, ladies and gentlemen. There we go.
Hello,
Tyler.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
Doing great.
Excellent. So, been hanging out with some people.
Yes, I have. Yeah, Mason and Carter Klein, just two amazing riders, amazing family. Just the whole family is amazing. So,
they are very much so, very very welcoming. And you couldn't pick. Well, now that there's faces everywhere, but you couldn't pick them out of the crowd. I mean, they're very humble and approachable and all that stuff. So it's 100% agree with that. Agree with that statement. So let's go back a little bit. Lizzie told me some stuff.
Oh no!
But we're not going to start the show with that. We're not going to start talking about that. So tell me a little bit about the background. How did you end up heading out riding with Mason, and where do you come from?
So yeah, I've got a little YouTube channel. I typically bring people out to Southwest Utah to ride rallies with me and stuff. And one of my friends who'd come out a couple of times, he's also kind of a Cove aficionado named Todd. Mm-hmm. And we're all in the Cove 450 Rally Facebook group. Mm-hmm. And Mason was posting in there. And we're like, wait, Mason Klein? Like, what? He's a real person posting to Facebook? What is this? Like, and so Todd, a couple of weeks ago, like literally a week before we went out and saw Mason, mm-hmm. he was like, hey, should I send him a message and see if we can go film him before he goes to Dakar? And like Todd, Todd's my friend, but we've met maybe 3 times ever, I think. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, yeah, why not? That sounds amazing. So, he sent a message to Mason on Facebook, and right away Mason was like, yeah, come on out. We've got a guest bedroom. And, I'd love to have you guys out. Had no idea who we are, what I do on YouTube. But just was like, yeah, sounds fun. If we're riding bikes, that sounds good. So that's kind of how it went down. And, I pull up not knowing what's going on. I'm sending Todd texts that's like, I hope this isn't awkward, and I get out of my car and I go and introduce myself. The whole family's outside putting up Christmas decorations. And right off the bat, no awkwardness at all. It was like I was part of the family. Like, they are really the coolest family ever. So anyway, yeah, that's the story.
Nice. So on a whim. But that's pretty awesome. So tell me a little bit more about the YouTube channel. What do you,
I've been covering just kind of dual sport motorcycles for about 10 years. Mm-hmm. About 6 years ago, we started doing rallies in St. George, Utah. There was just people on my channel that wanted to come out and ride. And so, people were actually showing up at my house, just like, hey, let's ride. And my wife was like, hey, you need to be charging these people, because I would go ride with them. And so my wife was like, if people are going to be coming and taking your time, like, you got to charge for that, or at least like set a precedent that you're charging, so that they're not just come taking your time. Yeah. And so I put it up on a website like, oh yeah, we're charging for this service if you want to come out and ride. And then people started paying for it. So that's kind of how the business went. And I kind of took a big step back from YouTube to just do these fun rallies in basically St. George, Utah. And then last year we went up to Capitol Reef, and it's the best way to make a living I can possibly think of. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So doing a little more rally training and just rally navigation type rides.
Oh no. When I say rally, I mean meetup.
Okay. Got it.
Mason and these guys, I didn't even know rally road books were paper until I met Mason. Like, I know very little about rally. Yeah. Or I did. And then I talked with Mason for just a couple hours, and it was like, oh my goodness. Now I know a lot about rally. Just a wealth of information, and I'm fascinated by it. I want to start making road books now and like guiding my rallies that way. I actually created, are you familiar with the backcountry discovery routes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everybody is. They're amazing. I actually made my own. That's a loop that goes from St. George, Utah into Capitol Reef and then back around. And it's an amazing loop. I get chills just talking about it. I wish I could show you my arm. I got the goosebumps. Nice. But anyway, I think the way that I would like people to try and navigate that is with the road book. I think that would be really, really cool. Of course, I have all the GPS waypoints and everything like that, but it would be cool to do it with a road book, just kind of to train people like that. It would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the, as more people get into it or get used to it, the ability to like, okay, well, here's the road book version of it. And here's the GPS file just in case, Yeah. And I think that will be a safety net, because I go back and I've said it a bunch of times on the show, is like the used gear market isn't that good. meaning, or, I mean, I guess it depends which way you look at it, but it's not that good because a lot of the people that get into the sport, they don't necessarily get out of the sport, you know, so you're not finding used gear all the time. But also part of it is there's not as many, and obviously, I mean, it's growing. So yeah, but that would be rad. You know, that's what we need more of.
Yeah. It's just kind of like this awareness of there's a new, well, not a new way. I mean, it's a super old school way, but just a kind of new to the community way of navigating. And what I still have no idea when it comes to road books, what I have no idea how people do is if they actually get lost and get off the waypoint, like at Dakar, how do they get back? I mean, because you're calculating it with your basically kilometers or your miles. And then you have to, I mean, that's more math involved than I want to do. So yeah, I would want to do GPS backups for sure with my route. So,
oh, for sure. Yeah. But you know, it's interesting. So I'll tell you right now. And if you haven't already, there's a small little event that happens here in SoCal, the SoCal Roadbook Rally. Dude, it's got to be on your calendar. You got to come out for that because you'll see how that actually works. Only because it happened to me a couple of times as well. You know, there's no, I also work with Rally Comp, which does the timing and scoring systems for a lot of these North American rallies. Actually, I want to say all of them. But
cool. Oh, awesome.
But that's the thing. It has a feature where you can backtrack. Okay, go back to the last waypoint and it'll give you an arrow and it'll get you there. You know.
Oh, that's good.
So you have that. But
and it will deduct your kilometers, or do you have to kind of just keep an eye on it?
Nah, you're going to have to do some accounting when you get back. You know, it's like it goes off. You're like, okay, well, I know I'm back at this waypoint. The road book says that it's at this kilometer. So I'm going to adjust my equipment, kind of like restart. You know, it's like when you're playing video games, you know, you take the L and then it puts you back at a certain part in the stage. And well, it's the same, you know, it's kind of the same thing, you know, so you go back. But a lot of times with these road books, like especially at that event, if they're not running a system like that, you along the way, you make a waypoint or you make a turn, you hit a direction, the last note, and you just know that's where you were. Like it's just like, I know I was, okay, I'm going to go back to that intersection and I'm going to try again. Because obviously I missed something, you know? And so there's a lot of that. And sometimes, or the big lesson I learned is like looking forward a little bit, you know, like, okay, well, I know I'm off track, but let me look 3 or 4 notes. Oh, look, there's an uphill. And then you look around and it's like, well, that's the only hill in iShot. I'm going to go to the top of that and I'm just going to see if this note lines up with the rest of it. So all of a sudden, like it's not just about this mythical object in the middle of nowhere as known as a waypoint, but it's more like, okay, well, geography wise, or in the geographical location and the way the terrain looks, this looks like this makes sense. And a lot of times, you know, it'll make sense. Now there are some issues there are some things where you might get unlucky. You know, we saw Skylar House do that. I believe it was in a rally down in South America, it was at the Silkway. It just so happens that the wrong way lines up for a little further than you would like it to.
Ooh, yeah.
So then you get it. Yeah. So then then it's just a matter of, okay, well, I mean, you got to bite the bullet. And now you got to go back a longer ways, but it happens. You know, it's just part of it's part of it. And that's where a lot of times slowing down and navigating makes up more time than pinning it and, you know, riding at a speed where, you know, it's, I don't want to say over your head, but, you know, riding at a speed where you can't navigate as fast as you're riding.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that Mason brought up was he was like, you know, I would rather slow down, take a nice long look at the road book and then go fast and kind of remember the road book. And that's the thing. Like Mason, like talking to him with any amount of time, it's like, so I used to work with some gifted kids. As a teacher and talking with Mason, I'm like, okay, this kid is gifted. Like he, and, you know, he's basically telling me, oh yeah, you know, I had to do a little trigonometry to get back on course here. And, you know, that's something, it's really interesting because I look at it and I'm like, that's two things that I wouldn't put together as being fun, like motorcycling and accounting, like what you said earlier. You know what I mean? That sounds like a terrible time. It's like, hey, motorcycling is we got this really fun thing, riding motorcycles. And then we've got accounting. Let's do them together. Yeah. And it sounds weird, but I'm telling you what, like, it's so fascinating. And to force yourself not just to go fast on a track or fast through a course, but to force yourself to actually lift up your eyes and soak it in. Skylar Howes has talked about that. Mason's talked about that, where Skylar in particular, I was just watching a little video of his a while ago, and he was like, I can't believe I'm out here like doing this. And he's like, sometimes I'm just riding and having a really fun time and just enjoying this beautiful scenery. And then he's like, oh, right, I'm racing in the biggest race in the world. Yeah. And I love that there's a mental aspect. And because I'm unfamiliar with rally, and I'd imagine that a lot of the people who watch my channel are also unfamiliar with rally and road books. And man, it just adds this whole new element of kind of racing. Plus, you have to look up, you have to look around, you have to notice the landscape to navigate. And so I just think it's like this amazing synergy of all these cool things. And yeah, you wouldn't throw accounting in and think, oh, that sounds fun. Yeah. but just how Mason's describing it and everything, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to get one of the Cove Pros with a road book and then start doing this. Cause it does sound like a whole different sport almost, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, and that's the thing it's more challenging, you get, there's a lot of aspects to it, right? It's a challenge. You could ride 20 years in the same area, and the moment a buddy of yours makes a road book, right? You guys get together, and every other weekend it's somebody else's turn to make a road book. And you all of a sudden this, 50 square miles you always ride in. Every rock, every bush, all of a sudden you don't know where you're at. You don't know when the next turn's coming. You don't know, when it's coming, but it's tough for you to recall, oh yeah. Looking at this list of directions and go like, oh yeah, we're going to go up to this mountain and then we're going to hang a left up here. It's hard, it brings a whole new, or breathes a whole new life into the same area.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. I'm kind of hooked when Mason was telling me about it. And of course, Mason pulls, his family's, it's such a cool family. And Carter's there. Anyway, we go inside and he's like, do you want to try to do some rally road book navigating? And this is at night. And I'm kind of like, okay. And he's like, well, I've got the Dakar Xbox game. And so he throws that on, and then he turns off all the assists and everything. Mm-hmm. And so you just have like the road book that you have to look at while you're like racing in this video game. And it was so challenging, but like at the same time, like addictive. Like suddenly you're not just riding through open space through some dunes. Suddenly it's like when you hear that ping, you're like, oh yes. And then it gives you the next waypoint and you turn to the compass coordinates and it's rad. Like I was like, I want to do this in real life. Like it was almost instantaneous. Like this is so cool. So yeah, within not very long, he got me hooked. I'm stoked.
Yeah. Well, and that is exactly it. And actually, I don't know for those playing the home game, as I say, is I don't know a lot of people know this, but those road books that are in that video game are real road books. They were actually taken from one of the Dakar rallies in South America, where one of the editions of it. So that is a real road book that you're navigating in there, which is awesome.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So you kind of get to see and yeah, when you don't realize like, well, you literally just did the same notes that, Toby Price did, then, or, any of the other competitors. So obviously it's a little bit safer from home, a little more comfortable, but yeah, it's really awesome to see that, that they would incorporate it to that level. to get to that, that focus. And I did the same thing. I bought, I bought an Xbox. I went and I got the game, and, every once in a while I screw around when I'm not, busy with a bunch of stuff. But for that same thing, it's like you can create experiences, and I regret to inform you, once you start sitting down in front of like Rally Navigator and start doing road books, it gets addicting. It makes you want to it makes you want to go ride it that much more. Like I just recently did an event, and we were doing, they wanted to know, well, how far is it to this gas stop, or, the gas station separations, how much of it is dirt, how much of it is road. I'm like, well, if I just practice making a road book and I do it, I'll be able to tell you, based on the terrain. But then you start looking at the terrain and where they're going to be going. And, from 30,000 feet, you're looking at the satellite image. You're like, okay, well, they're going this way on the course, but I know this is how the note is. I could go this way and still end up in the same spot. You start seeing all these things, and it just like makes you want to go ride it that much more.
Yeah. So something interesting, before I knew what road books even did, what they were, I'm routing this huge, 1,000-mile multi-day loop through Utah. And in the beginning, have you ever heard of the kind of mapping navigation, or just kind of, I don't even know if I could call it waypoint software, but it's called What 3 Words. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay. My brother told me about this, and What 3 Words is basically GPS coordinates, or I think it's 10 by 10 meter, or no, sorry, 3 by 3 meter squares all over the entire world. So the entire world is a grid split into 10 by 10 foot, basically, squares. And every single square has 3 words that coordinate with it. And so, if you said like maps, colonoscopy, football, just 3 random words, you would come up with an area in Saudi Arabia, or, some other combination of 3 words would be my house. And so instead of saying, here are some crazy coordinates with tons of decimal points, you just give 3 words. And I actually started routing this route that I made. I called it the eveRide loop, but I started routing it with What 3 Words, almost as like, hey, this is going to be a totally new way to route this. But then I realized, okay, to use What 3 Words, you got to be kind of plugged into the internet, and you have to look at the 3 words to find out where it is. And some places don't have internet. And so I was like, I'll just do normal GPS waypoints. But yeah, now that the rally book is there, I think it's just a totally new way to do something. I'm really kind of pumped to maybe put a road book together for it. Right. It'd be cool. So,
well, and and it brings another thing to it. And this will be, so this part of the episode will be the, how do we sell it to our significant other portion.
Yes.
Road books are safer because the line on the map, unless the person that created the GPS file purposely went through and marked things with a waypoint, and then how to import not only the line but with the waypoints. So you have that point on the ground where this is the Kaiser Permanente hold or area, because this is where you're going to spend all of your copay. That's, unless they did that, then a road book will be safer, because the road book is going to tell you that, hey, that's coming up. Or it could be something as simple as a corner. That was one of the things that I was saying. Like, there was a lot of this last event, there was a lot of people interested in road books, and they were all talking about how they literally had a blue line. That's how it wasn't a road book event. And they were literally following a blue line, and a bunch of guys missed a corner off, exiting the freeway. I'm like, well, you're following a line. How do you do that? And you realize, they're on a very fast section of highway, and that corner is like, comes up out of nowhere. I'm like, and like I told him, if you guys would have been on a road book, you would have known that that's a 10-kilometer straightaway as fast as you can go or want. And then when you start seeing your odometer approaching that, that marker, that like, hey, there's a left turn at 73.48, As it starts getting closer to that, you're going to wind it down.
Yeah. Instead of just blow past it. I know trails really well in the trails that I've scouted around St. George for the rallies that I do. And I started to know the trails around Capitol Reef really well. And even now, I'll still blow past stuff every rally, and I'm leading a group of people and I'm like, oh yeah, well, I was having fun through that whoop section, or I was having fun, cruising down this trail, and we actually have to go back now. And they're like, what kind of a, guide are you? And I'm like, well, I'm having fun is the problem.
Who said I was the guide?
Yeah, right. Well, a lot of times
I was just making sure you were behind me waiting for you to make a turn.
I'm just trying to keep people on their toes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the big parts about the whole road book thing is like, you can visit the same area you've always been. It presents a challenge. If you like creating routes, then it's one of those things like you can get as detailed. I mean, I've seen people like Scotty from Baja Rally lock himself in a room for like 10 hours. And all of a sudden you come out and I'm literally like staring at one of his road books, and it's just all this detail and all of this drawing and just so specific in all these places. It's just crazy. So you can go as complicated as you want and then not. You could just go, I mean, if we ever printed out a MapQuest, or was that Yahoo Maps or Google,
oh my gosh,
if you ever printed one of those out, you literally followed a road book because it literally told you.
Wow. Yeah. In X miles, you've got to do this direction at the marker.
Yeah. It would tell you.
That's so funny.
Yeah. It would tell you how many miles. Okay. Yeah. It's in 6.3 miles. Well, but then it would give you a street name. Well, unfortunately, in the desert, we don't normally have street names, but there's a bush and a tree and a cattle guard, in this orientation. Okay.
Yes.
I am here. I have arrived. I have honored this place with my presence.
Yes.
Now I got to go find the other one.
So hold on. When you're creating a road book, do you go out? I mean, because it might be kind of something interesting to do to create a road book and literally with phones and with, I'm sure somebody could throw together an app that would do this, but like where it just says, okay, it maps you, and then you can lift up your tablet if you have a tablet on your bars or phone or whatever, and then snap a picture. And so it's like at this very landscape, that way, you wouldn't have to draw. Cause I mean, even by road book standards, I'm a horrible artist. So, that would be kind of a cool app for somebody to throw together. And maybe somebody already has. I'm brand new to this whole thing. So
they have Rally Navigator does that. And it allows you, they have a mobile road book app where you can do exactly what you're describing. The ability to you get to this area and it's like, okay, this looks pretty tricky. Let me, you can snap a picture included in there, but you can also, you can literally design the road book as you're sitting there.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I've got to look into that. That's so cool.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. There's a lot of tools out there, and the Rally Navigator, their desktop version. I did the SoCal BDR. I created the road book for the entire one. Just same thing, just basic, nothing fancy, only what I could see from the satellite images. Again, just to get practice. And I mean, it's so cool because, they parse the GPX files for the BDR. And, you can add the part to the end. Like you can okay, here's the next portion of it is from here to here. And I believe if I remember correctly, it was like where they would say is like your campsites, or like where you're supposed to kind of stay in that area. And this is the next day's route. And the next, we'll say stage. Well, with Rally Navigator, it's like you can take that GPX file and add it to the end of the other one. So
cool.
So what I would say is like, there's other places where there's like a lot of GPX files that you can find and be like, okay, well, I'm going to overlay these and I'm going to choose to go down this one. And then I'm going to connect into this other loop, so you may have a bunch of loops already in the St. George area, and you could literally like start laying them out on the map and be like, okay, well, we're going to do this half of this loop. We're going to do this 3-mile section of this loop because that ties us in over here. And like, all of a sudden you're staring at this badass road book And
oh yes,
and you're only an hour into it, and that's the thing. It's like, I mean, as for me, is like all my first road books, they're not going to be very fancy. It's only what you can see from the satellite image.
Yeah.
And maybe other special notes, but that's that's it. It's good enough. Like, it's literally good enough to send somebody out, and go. I mean, obviously you want to proofread it and maybe write it yourself, but you're going to find that you're probably pretty damn close if you've already ridden that trail. Now, if there's a lot of people that do it 50,000 feet up and they're like, well, this looks like a trail. And especially if you're in California, this won't work. Fences, new terrain features, things that, so yeah, dude, it's crazy. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it is very much so. I mean, you could spend a whole day in front of the computer and before you know it. So how much riding did you guys do? What did you guys do?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Going back to me. So my arm is broken. So I broke it on October 11th was the day of infamy for me. Oh. That's probably not even cool to say, because the real day of infamy, no disrespect to that, but, it's the first broken bone that I've had riding in a long, long, long time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so, and that came out of nowhere, a wash in the middle of a whoop section, and it just, bounced my rear shock, broke my arm. Anyway, so I wasn't able to ride, but what I do kind of semi-professionally, and I wouldn't say I'm like professional as in like it's my main job, because man, I wouldn't do it as my main job while I still can ride motorcycles, but I am a pretty decent FPV pilot. And so I had my FPV drone out there, and I was able to follow Mason and follow Carter and just get some really cool shots. And that's kind of what I wanted to do for them. And then just give them that footage so that they could put things on their Instagram, put it on their YouTube channel, just kind of use that footage whenever they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then I also, I'm a Kobe affiliate, so I'm not like working for Kobe, but I get paid if I sell their motorcycles. Just like, you get paid if you sell something on Amazon and you're an Amazon affiliate. So, anyway, so, my kind of goal was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to go ask this Dakar pro what he thinks about the Kobe, and maybe he's like, oh, it's crap. Or maybe he's like, oh, it's great. What I heard him say, and when I interviewed him and everything, he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm putting a video together right now. It's hard to edit things. But he was like, yeah, this bike can win stages right out of the box. And, they're going to give me a more powerful version, when I get to Saudi Arabia and, the Kobe Rally EX, I think, or XE. I can never remember. I hate letters and numbers. But whatever it is, it's the new Kobe, right? I mean, yeah. But, anyway, so he's like, he's got a Rally Pro, like torn down. And that's just, that's the thing. I went out there to kind of be like, hey, I want to really get the scoop of what he thinks about the Kobe, because, my reputation's kind of on the line, because I told a lot of people like, hey, the Kobe is great. And then as a lot of the other reviewers came out to review it, they're also like, yeah, this is a dang good bike. And a lot of people still doubt, because it's from China, and, a lot of Chinese motorcycles just were not good. But yeah, Kobe made a good first impression on their first Dakar, and then they've done well in other rallies. And then picking up Mason, like, I don't know if they could have made a better move to get him as a privateer, to let him ride the bike, and kind of almost no obligations type of thing for both Kobe and for Mason. Mm-hmm. Just, it's awesome. But at the same time, like, Mason deserves a factory team. Like, he's incredibly fast. He's an incredible navigator. And for his first Dakar to go out and get ninth, is that not mind blowing? Has anybody else done that well their first Dakar? Maybe. I don't know. You'd probably know.
Yeah. No, it's not. It is not anybody showing up on their first few go arounds is not. And not only the Cove bikes finishing the way that they did, I mean, just period finishing. And then, Mason as a rider, youngest stage winner, all of these things, like it's just, there's so many like first time events that have happened just in this circle between Cove and Mason.
Oh yeah. And what's really exciting to me, like I told you at the beginning of the interview, like I am a dual sport fanatic. I love on-road and I love off-road. I love riding dirt bikes. I love riding street bikes, but like the combination of the two is just my total jam. And rally does that, but nobody's bringing rally bikes to the masses, or nobody was. And then Cove does, and I'm like, nah, it's going to be another junky bike that I have to review. And then I get on it and I rode it, and I was like, no, this thing's like excellent. And then, you hear Jimmy Lewis be like, oh, this thing's pretty good. And then Mason, I don't want to spoil it, but obviously he's a fan of the bike. And I mean, like we did a lot of talking off camera, off the record. And of course it's off the record, so I'm not going to dive into the details and stuff. But I mean, basically it was like, yeah, this bike is great. And I asked him straight up, like head to head, like, hey, you've ridden the Cove Pro and the KTM factory 450. Well, it's not a factory, but the 450 replica that he raced for 2 years. And he was like, in the interview, so it's on the record, he said it's, I can't say for the money because both of the bikes were kind of provided for me, but he's like, there's just not an enormous difference. He's like, I have to put more hours into the Cove because, most people don't know what one click even does on the suspension, but he was like, when you put in the time, when you put in hundreds of hours, then you start to know where the suspension sits. And he's like, the suspension on the Cove is a little soft for me, which is funny because a lot of the, people like me, these kind of doofy dual sport riders, we're all like, man, the Cove suspension is a little bit stiff. And for Mason, he's like, it's a little soft. And Mason's not a heavy guy. No. So, I mean, when you're really rallying out there, the Cove is a rally bike. So anyway, yeah.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick. We have got some news for you guys. So Mira Activewear, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the brand. You should be. You've seen their handiwork if you've seen pictures of Happy Dave and a few of our other riders here in the States, but also in the Dakar Rally, a lot of the top pros wearing their windbreakers, custom made rally suits and things like that. They have been phenomenal. They are a very, very high quality product. Awesome printing, design team, everything. But the reason we're interrupting this episode is they have got a fundraiser and promotional raffle going on right now between now and February. You want to get on over there. So you can purchase a limited edition Mira bandana set. So 3 special designs. That will get you entered into the contest for a grand prize of a full rally suit. So check out all the rules and limitations, all that fun, all that jargon. Get on over to the website. Link is in the description. And let's get back to the episode. Yeah, we got into it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep getting way off topic, but that's just how I am. No. But I mean, that's, all of these are good. I mean, they're all good points. And that was something. So I literally, full disclosure, I literally just hung up with Mason, less than an hour ago. And I was talking with Lisa, talking with them and with Lisa Carter and Mason. And we were talking specifically that, about the suspension and how he's going, with a Showa setup from AHM. And I'm a big fan of suspension. I've more so become across the years of the show is that, the money spent on suspension is well spent. I mean, the 3 horsepower, the 4 horsepower that you're going to gain is useless if the suspension doesn't allow you to have that confidence to do it. Like there's a whole second bike under you once you tune the suspension. And And it's that specifically that what you just said is like, okay, well, for Mason, it's soft, but for you, me, and everybody else in the world, they're like, yeah, this is a little sporty for my taste.
Yeah. So let me go into detail about kind of the suspension choice.
Yeah.
And maybe you already talked to that, but when I was talking with Mason, he did point out on the bike that he had. So he's got the Kobe Rally Pro that Sunier rode in Sonora. Mm-hmm. And then he's got the Kobe Rally Pro that's taken apart in like a shipping container in his backyard, which is that alone says so much about Mason. Like, other guys have these big teams and and Mason's like, yeah, I'm putting things together in my backyard in a shipping container with like a lamp, he's just so humble and so rad. Anyway, he did show me on one of the production, well, it was a pre-production bike that his friend Harth Noah got a hold of, right? Mm-hmm. And so when they dug into the suspension of that, and this is a gray area. I'm not sure if this is off the record, on the record, but this is kind of a gray area. But he was like, hey, on the pre-production suspension, the chrome was kind of wearing off in a worrying way. Now, for a rider like you or me, that wouldn't be an issue. But for a rider like Harth Noah or Mason, it could be an issue because you're really working the suspension. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, just to make sure that doesn't happen in Dakar, he's like, I like the Kobe suspension. I think they've done a really good job. They've set it up well. But he's like, just to make sure that issue is 100% addressed, we're going to go with the Showa forks and shocks. So, I mean, it's kind of like he was saying it was more of like almost a surety. He's like, the Showa forks are a known quantity. They've been around for forever. We know those. The Kobe forks are really good, but that one issue that they had, not on the production bikes, but on the pre-production bikes, he's like, that just made me a little bit nervous because if that chrome starts coming off, you really start having issues in a race like that, So, for somebody like you or me to fix that wouldn't be a big issue. But when you're at Dakar, suddenly that's a big thing to overcome. So anyway, it's the way that he looks at things versus the way, a dual sport duffer looks at something is vastly different. And, he's talking about plastic gas caps. And I'm like, that's funny because people in my community make fun of the billet gas caps, right? It's like, oh, you went for the fancy aluminum billet gas cap. You must have some money, like blah, blah, blah. But Mason's like, yeah, I mean, when it goes from cold to hot, like it does in Dakar and you're racing, plastic it cracks. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, so you're telling me that aluminum billet gas caps actually have a purpose? And he's yeah, absolutely. You have to have them at Dakar. Yeah. It's so just the racing atmosphere versus the goober atmosphere. It's a totally different mindset. And so things actually make a lot more sense, on that level than plastic gas caps do for me. So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, which is, it's crazy. It's again, you go back, it's like, it's details of things that, you, I, and everybody else, I'm with you on that one. It's like, it's like, it's like KTM owners be like, is it available in orange, or what, how do we, it's like, how do you, justify what are these things for? But if nobody, necessarily tells you the reason, and I 100% agree with you, pre-production bike, okay, maybe it had a coating, the coating wasn't done correctly for that pre-production bike. But all these other things is one, there's a ton of bikes already out in the wild. That was something I was talking about with Gary. It's like in the cumulative amount of miles that have already been put on these bikes, you're already scratching at the surface of like, okay, if there was a major flaw, it would be uncovered. It would have reared its head. Yes. Even if you're a naysayer, even if you say that, well, the Dakar bikes were special factory and we don't know if they changed the engine in the bathroom in the back of the motorhome or, like you know, there's always going to be the hater crowd, but you got to think that, okay, well, any which way you slice it, you don't take a bike that's a small batch, you know, bike, and then complete the Dakar, all three of them with 3 newbie riders in rally.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start backing it up with all of these other results, right? Sonora Rally, finishing Sonora Rally, turning around and running the Nora Rally on the same bike, you know, all of these things that don't, you know, and then, okay, fine, you don't believe on that. Okay, here's, you know, hundreds of these bikes now that are
out in the wild, getting beat up, beat around. Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. It's getting harder and harder to hate the bike.
It is. And the responsiveness of the factory. That's one thing that I've noticed in talking. I talked to Jubal, I talked to Gary, I've talked to these guys, and you can even if you don't talk to them, you can see how quickly the things change, you know, with the bikes. That is super important. You know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's incredible. Like, I mean, we were talking in Mason's shipping container workshop, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I cut my interview that I did with Mason down to like 20 minutes, talking about the bike, talking about Dakar prep and everything. We were out there for like a good hour at least. And we were talking about gas caps. We were talking about rim locks. We were talking about everything that works and doesn't work. And it was just cool because, like, you know, Mason was like, hey, you know, talks to Gary, talks to Feng Shu, and is like, this is an issue. And a lot of the things they're like, oh, we found that out last rally we rode. It's been fixed already. And so hopefully when Mason jumps on the EX, that is kind of like the evolution of all of the feedback that they've gotten from the Rally Pro, not just from doofy people like me, but from actual races on the bikes, which says so much. Mm-hmm. And I mean, something that I just want to reiterate, and one of the reasons why I'm so excited about Kove is, you know, I don't owe anything to the company. I don't owe anything to Gary. Like, I do appreciate that I make a little money if people use a link to buy the bike, but like, what more than anything, even if I wasn't affiliated at all, like, the Kove they're bringing out mass produced like rally bikes that anybody can pick up. Mm-hmm. And so what it's going to do for the sport of rally, road books, all this new, like, kind of uncharted territory for dual sport riders is enormous. And then the fact that it actually is a good bike, and it's being proven by like riders that ride the bikes hard, like Mason and Hearth Noah. I mean, like, it's building the genre. It's making dual sport better. And so, you know, and also they're pushing other companies to be like, oh, hey, maybe we need to look into mass producing our own rally style bike. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Kove kind of on its own has really elevated, just in 1 year, elevated that dual sport market. Hopefully Suzuki, Honda, even KTM, you know, because KTM has the rally replica. Mm-hmm. But hopefully they're like, hey, you know, people don't want, I mean, some people do want, I'm not knocking it, but, you know, Honda and KTM, they're saying, hey, maybe people don't want the 300L rally. Maybe people don't want the 390. Maybe they really do want kind of a higher spec bike with a tower and with a longer range, like Kove's doing. Yeah. And how great would it be if they got into the game? Suzuki, you know, and Yamaha, maybe they got back with Fantic and got in the game. Like, it's exciting to me to see dual sport being elevated, because nobody has cared about dual sport for decades. Like, yeah. I mean, KTM makes the 500. It's a fantastic bike. The 350, also amazing, but they're the only ones pushing it. Like, the Suzuki's got the DRZ, been around since 2000, you know, Kawasaki with the KLX. And I mean, I just really hope it's like, hey, people really do like dual sport. And more than that, people want rally. People want road books. People want range, good suspension, decent power. I would love to just see an absolute transformation. And I think it's coming. I hope it's coming.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, because they're going to, what they've already done is brought to light, like, it's going to be tough because they literally were the first to market on something like this, where it's readily available to the public. It is a right out of the box. It is a decent performer. And as time goes by, people like me that have shiny object syndrome will be able to bolt more and more parts onto it. And then from there is, okay, how do we, like, from the manufacturing perspective and from all the other brands, it's like, okay, these guys beat us to the punch. Now, how are we going to get there? You know, and it's not going to be with a $12,000 Austrian, 450, because now you got pricing, or how are you going to do it? Like, I mean, I think you've probably seen the spy shots recently of the new 390 with the 21-inch front, what looks to be 18-inch. Like, they're building another 390 that's going to be more, it's with the new Duke engine in it. And so they're getting a little spicier with it, but like you said, is it really going to be I think they have the 300L in their sights. Like, well, if Honda's selling that, we should sell this. So.
I honestly, okay. I mean, I don't want to knock on those bikes. And honestly, my take all along has been like horses for courses. Like, different people like different bikes. There's different terrains. No one bike is going to be perfect for everything. Mm-hmm. But for me, the 300L, the KTM 390, they do not excite me. They're not bikes that I want to own. They're bikes that I've ridden, and I don't care. Yeah. For a lot of newer riders with maybe not as much hard terrain around them, because I have access to gnarly terrain in St. George. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, that's great. Those bikes fit well. So I'm not knocking the bikes, but it is cool to see Kobe just bringing that forward. Now, on the negative side, all right, this is something that just kind of like sunk my heart with EICMA, right? With the Kobe, the new 450 Rally EX, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, they got the regular version, which I bought, $9,000. It's amazing. They've got the Rally Pro version, which I'm thinking of maybe selling mine and getting the Rally Pro version now, just because there are some differences there. At first I was like, the differences aren't really going to be a deal. But then after seeing Mason ride the 450 Pro, I'm like, oh, there's some differences.
There's some things here.
Yes, they've done a better job. I mean, and it's faster, and it's crazy. But and I kind of predicted this a long time ago. You've got a $9,000 kind of regular Joe version. You've got the $14,000 Pro version, which is doing rallies and doing fine. And then the EX is now, I think they said 20,000 pounds, which I don't know what that calculates to in dollars, but I mean, that's getting up near Austrian prices. Yeah. And it's like, oh no, please keep making something that I can buy. I can't spend $25,000 on a rally bike. You know what I mean? Like, so that kind of broke my heart that the EX, yes, it is getting closer to the rally replica, closer to that KTM high bar, because there's no doubt, cone valves and everything, that's better. That's absolutely better. But, they're getting closer to that, but it's kind of like, hey, not everybody needs a bike that literally can win Dakar. I mean, it's super cool, but I just want a bike with a road book, with a fairing on it, a nice range, and that can do everything I want to do on it. And the Kobe, the normal Kobe does that for me. But, man, if they start going the direction of a lot more money for kind of that diminishing returns curve that you've seen, mm-hmm. With more power, less weight, it's like, hey, I just really hope that they don't just completely blow off the little guy.
Yeah.
And go the way of Fantic and Hero, where you can't get them anymore. Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, that's my concern.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and I can see it, right? It's the business side of it. And, just looking it up, if Google serves me correct, 20,000 pounds, we're looking at about 25K US. That's well, I mean, that's pretty much, if you wanted to get a KTM rally replica in the US, you're going to be really close to double that. Well, all said and done, right? You pay somebody to smuggle it across the border.
One.
If you can get one. Yeah, if you can get one. That's been smuggled across the border, So you have that. But as long as, I think they're okay to do that. If it's like, okay, well, this is a factory race bike. It's going to have the blueprinted engine, it's going to have all the suspension, all of this stuff. And then offer the pro version that they still do now, kind of a Gen 1, but with not all the fancy stuff. Maybe sell it without the navigation equipment. I mean, even if you think about it, what the pro version right now is still like 14K or something like that.
Yeah. 14,000. So, I mean, that's pricey, but that's what my KTM bone stock KTM 500.
Yeah.
I got that for,
Yeah. 14K. But then, I can tell you right now, you're with the road book and 2 ICOs. That's well over a grand.
Yeah.
So, you start to think, and then, go to hit up IMS or a Chirby's for a desert tank. And now all of a sudden that's another $400, and so you start really chipping away at that cost quickly when you compare it to one of the other bikes.
Even then, when you start, unless you get a rally kit, which, let's be honest, I mean, I've been looking at rally kits for a long time. Just because I've always loved the look. I mean, that's kind of what got me into the Kobe, really. Mm-hmm. But those rally kits, I mean, I saw one for the 450L, Honda's 450L, $15,000.
Oh yeah,
and that it looks amazing. I mean, it looks fantastic. But man, I can't afford that. I mean, because you got a $10,000 bike, $15,000 more for the rally equipment, the tank, the exhaust, the fairing, the windshield. But then you're still on a 450L, just a heavy 450L. And I love IMS and the Cherokes with the tanks and everything, but like a lot of those tanks, they don't have the low lobes like a rally tank has. And so a lot of that weight goes up high, and it makes the bike harder to ride. You have to do suspension work. There's a lot of, a purpose-built rally bike. That is the bar that I want to start with from here on out on the bikes that I buy. Yeah. I'm not interested in putting a huge tank, an 8-gallon tank on a 500. I want it there. I want it already made. I don't want to have to fiddle with it. And, so I just want the industry I hope Kobe sells just 1 million bikes. Doesn't matter if I'm involved in that or not. I hope they just sell a ton. So the industry's like, hey, people want these.
Yeah. Maybe we should be building these. I mean,
fingers crossed, man.
I know, right? Well, just to kind of play up, right? Playing the let's play the fantasy bike league, right? The majority of the Rally Factory replicas up until today are still based on the trellis frame, like on the 690. So walk into the dealership, 690 is probably going to be about 14K. Say if you got the unicorn deal. You show up with 14K cash, and the sales manager says, "Fine, whatever, take it." No ADM, no tax. Out the door, 14K. Hit up Kit 690. That's another That's 5,000 pounds or 5,000 euros. So we'll go dollar for dollar. We just won't do fancy math. That's another 5K. You're at $19,000, and you still don't have navigation equipment. So you're at about 21K. Once you put the nav equipment on it, once you do all this stuff, and you have a 690. So it's not as light as the 450 Cove.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to be as nimble. The suspension travel, it's been neutered. They're down to, I think, like 250 millimeters. So you can't really hardcore off-road it like you could, say, the Cove with full travel. So in all directions for the time being, there's no easy way out. And probably filled up. Now, I'm curious to see that the 800 rally or the 900 rally that they're coming out with? Yeah,
the 800. Yeah. They're saying 370 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. They didn't really, I was thinking, they probably exaggerated with the Kobe. When I heard some of the numbers early on before I've ridden the bike, kind of like some companies do. Not even just Chinese companies, but companies all around the world like to kind of fudge things and take liberties with numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But Kobe was pretty on the mark with their numbers.
Yeah.
And dude, that 800, I don't know. I personally don't like big adventure bikes. I don't like the weight of them. I need to be able to pick up my bike because I don't want to ride fire roads all day.
Mm-hmm.
So weight is a huge thing for me, but man, 370 pounds for an 800.
Yeah.
If they can pull it off, they might be coming at the market like so hard. Like once people see how these bikes are doing in the rallies, cause one Dakar, okay. The Dakar and Sonora and a couple other rallies. Oh, okay. 2 Dakars, a whole bunch of rallies, hundreds of riders, all working on these bikes, all smashing them into the ground. Then the reputation really starts to take off. And again, my fear is that once the reputation takes off, I've seen videos where Feng Shu was talking about, when we sell it in the United States, we're not making money. They're gonna want to start making money when that reputation takes off. And it's they're basically selling the bike, from what I've heard, at cost, both the Rally regular and the Rally Pro version, and they're not going to do that for very long. So I'm worried that the price of those things is going to go up. That's the thing that scares me, because you don't get that kind of performance without spending some money, which is why that Rally EX costs so much more, because they really are putting in the best components. So I just really hope there's still like a poor man solution. Going back to that, you can hear it in my voice. It's like, please, Kobe, don't leave us in the dust. Like, I don't want to have 2 years of Kobe's that are reasonably priced or even cheap for what they are, and then everything just goes through the roof on prices, because that's what things cost to build and to make money, so.
Yeah. That is it's a real, very real thing. You see the bike prices start creeping up, and you understand, the cost of business and things that are going. And once these things get, recognized as being street legal in the US and not just for competition use only, I would 100% expect the price tag to go up, because it costs money to get it through that process. So I think, the ideal would be like, if you really don't want to have a middle of the road, then okay, you can have your full race bike, and then you can have the standard version, and then have the ability, have a parts catalog, because if somebody wants to go race one of these things, have the availability for them to take this thing and then build it the way that they want. Yeah. And then I think there's a lot of video. Like
I'm sure of it. In a video I did a while ago, I was saying, hey, and I probably pissed Gary and Kobe off, because I was like, hey guys, don't buy the Pro version. Why would anybody buy the Pro version? Like, it's got a couple horsepower more. And the suspension travels the same. There's a lot of the same stuff. There are like subtle differences. The Pro version uses, Mason pointed out, the Pro version uses titanium hardware. So in this video, I was saying, you guys, why spend money on the Pro version? Why not get the regular spec version and then just, slowly upgrade it to where you want? Because you can put on the exhaust aftermarket. I'm sure there's aftermarket exhaust being developed. You can put on the map, the ECU of the race bike. You can buy a carbon rally tower, or even an aluminum rally tower if you want. I just got one of those, but it's on the way. And so it's kind of like, why not kind of start with the base model and build it up? Like, very few people actually need the road book and stuff like that. But now that I understand kind of what a road book does and the possibilities that opens up, I'm kind of kicking myself, because I'm like, I should have got the version with the road book. I think I would have even more fun. on it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, there's people that's what I love about the whole, the community and more people that are getting out there and doing it. Somebody already drew up the plans for a 3D printed tablet holder or a 3D printed bracket so that you could bolt amps pattern, mount to it. I have one for a Galaxy Tab Active, and I have an amps pattern mount that I think will bolt on there. I'd have to get my hands on a bike. But I've already printed the bracket out, and that's awesome. The plans are out there. It's available. You just got to know a little bit about how, 3D printing something so that it's at its best strength or whatever, the right material. But it's like, okay, so now you could get, and that's one of the focuses that I have, and especially coming into this new year, is going to be like, okay, look, we already know the recipe, like you're saying, it's like, we know the recipe. You could go get a Pro. It's going to have a pair of the ICOs. It's going to have a road book reader, the holder, all of this stuff. Okay, cool. Well, what if I'm not even sure if I want to try rally? It's like, well, I got a tablet that's laying around, or you know what? I'm going to walk down to the local, Best Buy or whatever whoever local electronic, the 7-Eleven, and pick up one of those cheap burner phones that's Android based. And I know I could download, an app to it that'll read a road book. And so is this going to be good enough to keep up with Skylar Howes when I run into him on the trails out there in St. George? No. Oh, no.
But I mean, would it open up the possibilities of creating routes, like you were saying earlier in the podcast, creating routes that are dynamic and fluid and challenging, and they're just kind of winding through, because you could have a million different, the trails in St. George, and there's a million of them. But to have, different road books with different routes and different challenges and different timings, like, oh, hey, I want to be out for 3 hours today. Let's get a 3-hour road book, and then it just opens up so much more, I think. Like this whole, imagine not knowing how to read or speak a language, I guess, and then suddenly you can speak that language, or you can somewhat understand, and you're like, whoa, the world just opened up because I can understand another way that people do things. That is what in the hours that I spent with Mason, that the night before we went out to film, that was like my mind expanding, like, whoa, this is a whole different way to ride motorcycles. And I want it so bad. So rally, I love what you're doing. We need to make it more accessible. We need to make the whole idea more accessible so people get pumped on it. You don't have to look at GPX tracks all the time. And especially, man, middle of Utah, there's some places that are super remote, no self-service, and like a road book would just be a perfect way to go. So I love it. I love the whole thing, what you're doing. I'm so glad.
Yeah. I think that's what it's going to, what it's going to take to help continue to grow the sport. Aside from the fact that we now have, we have competitive events now here in the United States, here in North America. You can actually, if you wanted to, you could actually go race one of these things. And that's the beautiful, I say race it, and I mean race it because you go through the registration part and you end up getting a number. But there is about, if you have 100 riders at an event, there's about 10 of those guys that are in kill mode and want to win the thing. And then the rest of the field is out there just having fun with road books and doing the tour. And that to me is like, hey, and maybe they're competitive within their class and, they're leading it there, but nobody's going after that overall. It's only those top guys that are really after the overall on the rally, but everybody else is, just outrunning their pace, and it's very different group of guys and all this stuff. So I think it's going to continue to grow, but I think that's just the avenues of how to make that more accessible need to be exposed, and ideas need to be brought to the table, and things need to happen so that it continues. I mean, I can tell you it's working because I can tell you like just the podcast growth, just the analytics of it, I can see that where and when and how things are just picking up speed and growing and growing and growing. So it's like, okay, well, this is like, we need to do more of this. And then everybody put their collective minds together and like, okay, well, this is the next, this is how we get the next step done. These are the things. Maybe it's just starting, small dual sport road book race based rides. I love it. There's events in Europe, but that's what they do. And it doesn't matter. I mean, manual road book, with a phone app and nothing fancy. And they're, on a 1200 GS or 1250. And it's not, they're just doing some fire roads. They're doing some regular backcountry roads. It's not anything, it's not the Dakar.
Yeah. Well, something that shocked me is because I watched the Mason's video where he's riding with Skylar House and they're training and they're doing road books like down by the Grand Canyon and near St. George. And so just pretty much as soon as I met Mason, I was like, dude, you're going to have to show me that road book, how to use it. How do I get to where you went? Cause I want to go ride that. Yeah. But anyway, it was funny to me because Skylar, as they're going through on this stuff, these trails that some of the parts of the video, I'm like, oh, I recognize that area. Maybe I could kind of figure out where they're at. And Skylar's like, yeah, well, this part isn't as technical as the Dakar. Like this is kind of more rocky, more difficult, more. And I was like, whoa. And then Mason, of course, these guys are so stinking fast, but Mason was kind of downplaying it. And he's like, well, it kind of makes me think that the Dakar isn't actually all that competitive just because of how slow I can go. And I'm kind of like, I'm pretty sure you're fast. Like I've seen videos of him. And then when I actually got out and saw him ride like live and trying to chase him with a drone that'll go 0 to 100 in 1 second and having a struggle keeping up with him railing corners and stuff on this relatively large rally bike, I was like, oh no, the Dakar is competitive. The Dakar is extremely competitive. Oh, yeah. You are ridiculously fast. Like, anyway, it's just funny the level that they're on. They see things in a totally different way, Well, Mason's like, yeah, I can slow down and look at the road book. And for him, slowing down and looking at the road book is faster than I will ever go in my life. Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a difference. Oh God, this is not it. All right, let's see. We'll do some dating here. There's a difference between a Pentium 2 and the current, 38 core Intel i9. Yeah. There's a very big difference in processing speed there, or for those really, really going back, let's go to the 14.4 dial up, kilobytes per second. To when you went to 56K, you were on fire. You were browsing things then once you went to 56K. So that's, that's just the difference. I've seen it in a lot of, I used to semi-professionally race remote control cars, and
nice.
There's, the kids, you had to watch out for the kids because as soon as they started getting wheel time and they started driving, their processing speed, their hand to eye coordination was just so stupid fast.
Yeah.
You could not keep up. And so I think it's the same thing. These guys get used to speed and doing what Mason does. And to us, it's like, lightning.
It's superhuman.
Yeah, it's superhuman. Yeah. And then to him, it's like, well, that was kind of slow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was telling me as I'm filming him, and I'm like, again, this is a very fast freestyle FPV drone. And he's like, well, I'll just kind of take it easy out there. And I'm like, when you're, about battery sag because you've raced these RC cars, And so, maybe you raced gas. Were you doing gas or?
I did both, and I actually dabbled a little bit in FPV. So,
sweet.
Yeah.
So you're familiar with battery sag.
Yes.
Battery sag is when you're pushing it, your voltage gets a little low and then it really starts to drop off. I'm getting battery sag within like 2 minutes of following Mason because I was pushing it so hard, like full throttle, just to keep up. And those FPV drones are so maneuverable, so incredible. and Mason is railing these ruts faster than I can keep up with an FPV drone. I mean, he's so fast.
Yeah.
And for him to be like, oh yeah, Toby Price is much, much faster than I am. And I'm like, how fast is Toby Price then? What the heck? So these guys are just, whole superhuman, whole different level.
Yeah. And then that was something we were talking about earlier was where did that happen? Because it's maybe Toby's speed comes from just literally raw miles per hour, and then navigates well enough to where the navigation doesn't slow him down. Because there is that balance point where you could be the world's fastest rider and the world's worst navigator all wrapped into one, and you will have a horrible day, almost guaranteed. And then there's the guy that's a slower rider or the slowest rider. But I mean, this guy, you give him a road book and it's like you might as well have just given him the satellite image and told him, here. He can piece it together, string it together, will not get lost, will not hesitate on a single note. And now all of a sudden you've got to push because this guy's making up time on you.
Oh yeah. Well, that's where I see Mason as the golden child. Like, honestly, like he's super, I mean, okay, let's talk a little bit about KTM. And there's a lot of things that are off record that I talked to Mason about. And I mean, he was very diplomatic about KTM, about Kobe. He didn't want to say anything bad about anybody. But for KTM to drop him after, I mean, and the way that they dropped him bothers me, because they didn't drop him after he crashed out, after his head injury, right? They dropped him after everybody else's rosters were full, so nobody else could pick him up. Which I understand there's a lot of money involved. Yeah. And I understand, KTM's a big company and they have a strategy to win. And one of the ways that they kind of needed to win was to maybe eliminate Mason. Yeah. And this is just speculation on my part. This did not come from Mason or anything, but like the way that they let him go, where he had to be a privateer, where all the other rosters were filled, that was kind of dirty to me. I when he told me about that, and he wasn't saying, oh, this was dirty, but like the way that he told me about that, I was like, oh, that's not cool. But like, to me, Mason is the combination, because, people will follow him because he is an amazing navigator. Yeah. And he's also very fast, and he's also very young. And so you have this combination of like, he is just getting started. He's done 2 Dakars. He got 9th his first one. He's winning stages in his second one. He was a leading overall for a little while. And I mean, the kid's 22. Yeah. He's this is like prodigy status for rally racing, I mean, and he's going to Cerritos and winning that, and 1,000 Dunas. And so to me, he's just like the ultimate kid to root for, because he's got a super long and very promising career ahead of him. And he's kind of got this underdog story going on right now, where he's like, hey, I'm racing, not even factory, but racing privateer with a bike that's almost a prototype. I mean, the EX is like, I mean, I heard some kind of inside scoop on that from Gary. And Gary was like, hey, I'm kind of concerned that we're putting the cart before the horse with the EX, because he's going to go race that thing. And I don't know if the parts are ready. So, so this whole situation with Mason, young, hungry, like very talented, both in navigation and in just raw speed. He's just so put together that way. And he's humble. I mean, he's working out of a shipping container in his backyard on bikes that, are beat down, kind of on loan from Hearth Noah. And like, it's just this super cool kind of Ford versus Ferrari story, where KTM is kind of Ferrari with their top, racers, and nothing against KTM. And I love the riders that ride for KTM. And Skyler went to Honda and everything. And like all these riders you want to see do well, they seem like such down to earth, good guys. But like Mason is like a kind of on a different level. Like he kind of got hosed by KTM.
Yeah.
And so, for him to jump on with Cove, as a privateer where he has to spend his own money on a lot of that stuff. Like, yeah, Kobe's letting him ride the bike and they're paying some of his entry fee. But other than that, he's got like sponsors that really nobody's heard of. I think he just got his graphics from his sponsor. They're like bright green, and I can't even remember the name of the company, but it's like a local company in California that's helping him go to the Dakar.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just this really inspirational kind of underdog story. And, man, I want him to win so bad. And he can win. That's the craziest part. Like, he could do it. And if he does it, KTM and Husky, they're going to be crapping their pants. They really are like, oh no, we made a mistake with that kid letting him go. Like,
yeah. Oops. Well, yeah. And that's a very, like, I mean, to me, that's a really, that's a valid point. And I felt the same way that when the news was like, okay, well, he's not on the KTM roster. And I mean, and you know, karma's a bitch because now Matthias Wagner is out. And I was joking in the rally group, you know, it's like, and then Mason's phone, he gets the text message. We miss you. Can we talk?
Oh,
you know,
man.
that's what I pictured, you know, and, you know, to me, like before when the whole Cove thing was coming up and then Skylar was out without a ride, you know, I'm thinking like, okay, I see the opportunity with Cove because they're serious. So in my mind, it's like, okay, whoever gets on the Cove team that can help develop the bike, you know, be that test rider, be that person and help elevate that bike's competitiveness on the other end of it. Okay, yeah, you go out, you put the thing on a podium, you know, you win a few stages, and then you start looking really, really shiny at that top 5 at the Dakar. Yep. And now whoever that rider is has just proven to all the other manufacturers that they're not just an athlete, they're not just a rider, you know, they're able to help, you know, develop and foster something and get it across the line. That is to me important. And then can be a brand ambassador. That's one of the things that I love, you know, with Skylar House is that he has that ability. Like, not only is he, I mean, super fast, competitive, and can ride, you know, all of that. He's also a good brand ambassador. You know? And so I see Mason right in with that as well. You know, yeah, he's a kid, and I've heard comments being made, and I'm like, dude, look how old he is. You're double his age, you know, like chill, just give him a minute. He's busy doing other things, you know? So to me, it's like, okay, this is the perfect move. And I kind of, maybe I'm a little bit biased in this because, you know, I know Mason personally. I don't know any of the other Cove riders, but man, it sure seems like they're getting a lot more. Like, if I was a factory rider for Cove, I would be, I don't know about in the rest of the world, but at least with all the media that I'm seeing here, I'm seeing a lot of media coverage already on Mason being on Cove. And none of the other guys, I'm not seeing posts. I'm not seeing all this. I'm seeing more of Mason. So if I was a factory rider, that'd be a question mark, you know, about that, you know, but I support them supporting Mason because I mean, at the end of the day, none of the guys on the team have put a bike on the podium. None of the guys on the team have led a stage at the Dakar. None of them have had, you know, Sanders, you know, all of them, Howes, Matthias, Brabeck, all of these guys following them.
Yes, I know. That's
so there's a lot of positive, and that's not to detract from anything. I mean, these guys, I mean, this is their job. You know, they get paid. There's paid athletes to do this kind of thing. And hey, if this kid's got it down and he's gonna, damn right, I'm gonna follow him. You know, this is a tricky section. I'm gonna get that toe into the next section, and then I'll make up my time and I'll do this. It's just part of the strategy, you know. So it's not to detract from what they do, but it's like, okay, I think they're putting, you know, with Gary and the Cove team and everybody putting some assistance on with Mason and helping him achieve this. Yeah, this is going to be I think this guy, I literally hope he has the same, if not better performance as last year's Dakar. What's going on, guys? Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. All right. Are you looking to promote your brand to a worldwide audience on the podcast? Drop us a line at podcast@chasingwaypoints.com and let's talk. See what we can do about getting you some more ears for your company and getting the word out worldwide.
Well, I hope there's no injuries, because I love the kid. Honestly, like he's probably he's been very, very busy. I was very lucky to go hang out with him, but like him, his family, Carter, they're just, I am sold. I'm like, these guys are amazing. Like, they're sacrificing a lot to get their kid out there. And anyway, I love them. And so, to look into it and to, watch the videos where he is leading, and to hear the stories where, all these big names are following Mason because he's just such a stinking good navigator. And then he's fast. And the thing is, I know the training is a lot. And here's something I just want to say about Mason. Like, yeah, I'm 41 years old. I'm out of shape. I send this kid around for 2 batteries. These batteries last for about 15 minutes, right? They're very high capacity batteries on a high power drone, but they can last for about 15 minutes still. I send him out and he is railing whoops nonstop on the 450 Rally Pro, which, gosh, and it was full of gas too. Full of gas. No reason for it to be full of gas, but that's the way Gary likes to deliver the bikes. So he's railing this thing through these whoops that, when you actually look at it, they're bigger, they're taller than the bike. And he comes back and I land the drone and I am more out of breath than he is from flying my dang drone.
Were you holding your breath?
Yeah, no, because I get pumped. I love flying drones. I get pumped. And yeah, he comes back and he's like not breathing hard. Like honestly, his youth, imagine the Lakers like getting Kobe Bryant, right? And then just being like, first year, maybe he gets like a little injury and can't play for a game. And they're like, oh, we're going to cut him. That's what KTM did. Yeah. Mason is kind of a huge future player.
Yeah.
Not only because he's talented and he is a great brand ambassador, but he's just really likable. He's just, I want him to win so badly, like for all the reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I hope he's not listening to this. And if he is, I hope that he's not feeling like under pressure. Cause really, like, dual sport is kind of not on the line, but like the future of dual sport really does kind of look up to Kobe. They're the only ones innovating.
Yeah.
And so if dual sport can turn kind of more in the direction of a rally and less in the direction of, the bigger adventure bike thing, then I think it will kind of save dual sport, because it is going away. People are going to more expensive, bigger bikes or more expensive dirt bikes, and dual sports kind of feels like it's fading a little bit. And so I think Kobe can bring it back. I think Mason can help Kobe bring that back. So, there's a lot for real hard dual sport guys like me. There's kind of a lot riding on this. Yeah. That's no pressure, Mason, if you're listening, bro. But
yeah, no, I think I think you're right, and that was when we were talking, and I've heard, and Alex had a message for Alex from Effective Soft, so that's his big title sponsor is the message is along those lines, and it's the same thing. It's like, hey, the reason these companies said yes is not because of what you're promising at the Dakar or the notion of it or any of that. It really is actually what you've done up until now.
Yeah.
That's why people said yes. So I think that, hopefully, when he hears it, and I think he understands it, Lisa and Larry, his parents, both are very they're very grounded and they understand, and he's still got to work for it, and they'll push him. And so I think that they understand And he understands that. It's like, hey, you know, I just got to go ride the bike. And that was actually one of the things he was saying. He said, you just go out, go get it done, and then just make it happen. And I think that's got to be the strategy. I don't think, you know, until you've been to the Dakar, you know, like Skylar, where you've been there a few times, like Ricky, where you've been there a few times, where it's a known recipe. I've been here. I'm not figuring any of this out. I've already figured it out. I'm just here to go win stages and to go put a strategy in place and to go execute that strategy and get those results. That's a very different approach, you know, aside from, you know, when the check says HRC, when the check says, you know, KTM group, you know, that is a whole nother difference, you know, because, well, if that KTM group check doesn't come through, it's going to be a little tough, you know? So, because that's not racing expenses, that's literally your living expenses and everything you make a living at. So it's a very different, you know, nature. So I think he, you know, I 100% agree with you. I want to see him, you know, up on top. I want him to prove that point without trying to prove that point.
Yes. And more than anything, like, have you seen the helmet that he crashed in? Like, oh my gosh, dude, that kind of crash, I've hit my head enough times to know. What I'm trying to say in a slow and very you know, kind of a clumsy way is I want him to win. I want him to do well, but more than anything, I want him to be safe. His career, he's got decades ahead of him. I mean, so much talent and yeah, you know, I'm kind of learning this. Bodies go fast when you get my age. It starts to hurt, right? And so I want him to do well. I want him to win, but it's like, how do you develop a strategy of like push, but also like be safe, man. Like be safe, be smart. I don't know, and I know that his parents are doing such a good job with that because they, you know, they could probably care less about a Dakar podium or something like that if it meant that their son was getting hurt. They probably are a very good, and Mason, knowing Mason, he's probably like, oh, I'll go as fast as I want. You know, that head injury wasn't that big of a deal. But I hope his parents can kind of rein him in a little bit and just help him to remember there's a lot of future ahead of him. Yeah. Because he's just immensely talented and he's got time is on his side. He does not need to podium this year. Although everybody would like to see that, except for KTM and Honda. It's
creeping up. You know, if you look, it's the same thing that happened with Skylar. It's just been this slow, steady progression towards where he's at. You know, you go to stage wins, you go, you know, from there, it's just like, okay, that's now a known recipe. I now know what I need to do to kind of get into that or to get the bike into that position. And so, you know, who knows? I mean, this is maybe like we were talking earlier, I think with him is the fact that he has been able to spend so much time testing suspension on a specific bike for his specific race setup, you know, and I think that is a huge thing. And that might be those 1 or 2 more miles an hour that he needed, you know, and maybe that would have been the difference in him not having a dismount, you know, that might've been like, there's so much more that comes out of it. So I don't want to say I have higher hopes or expectations. That's not it. It's more about like, I feel much better about the position that he's in now versus a position like if he was still on an Austrian bike. Because, I mean, obviously they're not going to hand him the keys. Like, he has his rally, his RFR here, but how much testing, how much stuff can you do on that when, you know, the suspension has got to be done by certain people and there's certain things, you know, that happen. It just doesn't work in your favor, I think, as a racer, where if you have direct feedback, direct control over the components, over the adjustments, I think you're in a much better place. And Mason's pretty technical. You know, he gets down and he will deep dive into some stuff. I mean, he in a roundabout way, I didn't know, but it sounds like he's also been responsible for some of the tuning stuff on Carter's bike. And
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so, that's, I mean, to me, that's like, I get excited about this because I'm more of a technical person, and I enjoy the idea of like, yeah, dude, I'm going to do this specific thing. Like, even though like, changing gear ratios on the bike, I know I'm not going to notice it, but in my mind, I feel better that this is one tooth higher than what it comes with factory. So it should give me just a little more bottom end out of the gate, even though nobody would ever, and I probably would never notice it. But in my mind, that made a difference. So I don't know. There's a ton of stuff.
It's true. It's true. And Mason, that's another thing that Mason really does have going is he works on suspension like all the time. He works on tuning. He worked on the map on Carter's bike. Like, he's just kind of the whole package. You know what I mean? He's very balanced across the board. And just, gosh, everybody knows it. If he goes in as a privateer, small sponsors, borrowed bike from the Dark Horse brand. Dude, just what a story. Honestly, if he wins or even podiums or even gets like top 10 again, you could make a movie out of it. You really could. It's just inspirational. He's an inspirational kid. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah. Amazon, are you listening?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Netflix, huh?
Netflix?
Just if somebody's going to make a movie, just please let me be the FPV drone pilot, okay? I'm pretty good at it.
Exactly, right? We've got the we've got the fan base, we've got the technology, we have the people in place, we're good. I'm happy to narrate it. We're good.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, no, really, you got the voice. Dang.
So ta-da. Yeah. Well, awesome.
Well, forget it. Maybe we just make it. Maybe we just make it and kind of do an underdog story ourselves,
Low budget. Yeah, there you go. Pitch it to Netflix, and then they refilm it. And then next thing you know, we get to fly the world making documentaries on underdog bike riders and racers.
I love it, man. I love it.
You never know. Tyler, so how do we find you on YouTube? Let's get
just go ahead and search YouTube for eveRide, EVERIDE. And I'll link back to you. In fact, well, maybe we'll talk about it later. I was going to ask you, like, can I put this up on my channel, or would it be better link to it? We'll talk about it later. But
yeah, we'll coordinate the sharing of the links and all of that stuff. I just headed on over, made sure I was subscribed to your channel from both of my accounts.
Great, thank you.
We'll definitely, but yeah, I'll get a, obviously I'll put a link in the description, and then I'll have that stuff linked up. I'll add you on the YouTube channel. So the episodes, they get published to YouTube as well. So it's available.
Great, yeah.
For even those playing the home game, I guess it's a good thing to cover. Yeah. So Amazon, Google, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, of course, both on video and then their podcast, because YouTube Music also exists now, which I don't know. And then there's a bunch of others. I search the name every once in a while just to go like, what other platforms? And I'm like, what platform is this? And then look, I have 30 subscribers on this obscure podcast platform I've never heard of. Huh.
You gotta love that.
I'm like, how are they, like, how did they get the RSS feed? Like, I don't know. Technology is scary.
It is. Yeah, stuff gets out there. It gets out there.
I know, right? Excellent, sir. Well, awesome. I will let you get back to the weekend. We will touch base. I'll send you links, and we'll do all of that fun stuff offline and make it happen.
Well, Victor, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
You're a freaking great host. And,
thank you,
dude. Honestly, I love what you're doing for Rally, and we need to blow this up.
Yeah,
it really does need to get big. It's so cool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we'll work together on it. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, sir. And happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays. See ya.
All right. We'll see you. Bye.
Bye. All right. So there you have it. Tyler of eveRide on YouTube. Got to check it out, dude. They're just, there's just so much going on. This is so great for rally in North America. We have a smaller field of North Americans headed to the Dakar rally. Last year was a big year. You had all of our guys from the American Rally Originals that headed over and did this. You know, you've got Kyle McCoy, who's going to be headed back and attempting the Dakar again, you know, in the Malamoto class, you know, unfinished business. Definitely going to be looking forward to keeping up with him on that story. We'll try and touch base with him on that one. All of this stuff that's just all of these different rally racers and rally riders and all of this community, all of this stuff is growing 100% behind it. And just trying to figure out, you know, what are the basics? What are the recipes? So this is where I'm going to sign off. But before I do, no, not going to do that yet. Hey, if you've got an idea, if you got some, like, okay, how, you know, man, I really wish I want to get into rally, but I don't have ABCD, you know, or I want to know more about ABCD. If you're on Spotify, hit that question and answer section. It's right in the app. You can do it right from the app. You don't have to go anywhere fancy. If you're on any of the other platforms, do not hesitate. Send me a message on Instagram. If I don't respond within a day, leave a comment on one of the pictures, because I don't know. There's like 16 inboxes that they have, but whatever. But hit us up. Let's get it going. What do you guys want to see? What do you think would help maybe grow the rally community? What would you like to see more of? And let's get this going. So anyway, with that being said, guys, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Looking forward to our next one coming up. Remember, if you are out riding, do not forget to tag us at Chasing Waypoints. Hashtag Chasing Waypoints. And if you haven't already, get on over to the website. Get signed up for the newsletter, The Bivouac. North America's Rally Raid and Adventure Riding newsletter. Hey, let's have some fun. Let's find out what you guys up to. Let's get you featured. If you're a brand and looking to get supported, get some eyeballs, get some ears on your business, absolutely hit us up. Send us a message at podcast at Chasing Waypoints. But anyway, that is a wrap. Remember, shiny side up. See you guys.